Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flicks Tabletop Gaming Warhammer 40k Battle Report. Today we're going to be seeing 1500 points of Necrons going up against the Tau, specifically the Farsight Enclaves. We'll take a look at the armies in a second. Here's the board we're playing on, same layout as last time more or less. I don't think anything was changed. Let's see who will be facing off. So here's 1500 points of Necrons. It's a battalion and it's the same list as last time. After fighting off the Ultramarines, they hung around and then the Tau tried to claim the territory, so they're still here to defend everything. Led by Imhotep, the Stormlord. He has a set Warlord trait, Hyperlogical Strategist, to regen command points. Backed up by an Overlord with a Resurrection Orb and a Void Scythe, and the Citan Shard of a Nightbringer. Troops, we have 2 5-man Immortals with Tesla. We have a 10-man Warrior Blob that's going to be housed inside the Monolith back there. We also have an unpainted, sadly, Doomsday Ark, 5 Lich Guard with Sword and Board setup, and a Treyarch Stalker with a Heat Ray. And the Citan Shard has Transdimensional Thunderbolt and Antimatter Meteor. And here's the Tau list that will be facing the Necrons, led by Cadre Fireblade. Also, this is a Spearhead detachment. He's just got the Pure-Tide Engram chip to also regenerate command points on a roll when they're used. 2 7-man Fire Warrior squad with support turrets with smart missile systems, a 6-man Pathfinder group here in the Crayer, a 10-man blob of drones. They're all just gun drones, even though some of them look different. Then we have 2 Riptides equipped as you see them, both with ion accelerators, one with 2 smart missile systems, one with 2 fusion blasters. They both have target lock so that they can move and fire heavy weapons without degradation of their ballistic skill. We have a Hammerhead equipped as you see it with 1 seeker missile, and then the big damaging part of the army, 2 squads of broadsides, one's with the rail rifle and the smart missile systems, 1 seeker missile each, and then the other with the high yield missile pods, smart missile systems, and 1 seeker missile each. So lots of seeker missiles in the army. That's what it looks like. They've definitely got the Necron on a number of models. We're going to decide the mission now and get set up. So the mission we're going to be playing today is the Eternal War mission, the Scouring. That's 6 objectives to claim and hold. Slay the Warlord, Linebreaker, and we're going to do First Strike, not First Blood, for secondaries. And for the second time in a row, rolled a d6 and got Hammer and Anvil, result number 4, on the deployment. So that's no man's land of 24 inches between both armies. So we're going to get objective set up, see who's going first, get armies deployed, etc. and be back in a minute. So here we are at deployment for the Scouring. We're on the Tau side of the table, just to go over this quickly. Made a little bit of a mistake when we were setting up, because you're technically not supposed to know your deployment type until you've set up the objectives. But, whoops, anyway, we're still going to go with it. Also, as part of the Scouring, 1 objective is rolled for to become the superior objective, and 1 is rolled for to become the inferior. So we'll go over that as we go. But most of the Tau are in this corner over here. Also, the drones are there just to take ablative wounds for the Broadside, Riptide, and Hammerhead, as is tradition. Got the Pathfinders on the top floor of this ruin, 1 of the Fire Warrior squads on the bottom guarding 1 objective, and the Cadres with them to buff them if anything comes close enough. Got 1 unit of Broadsides here. And then split across 2 objectives, we have the other Fire Warrior squad. This objective here, which is objective number 5, is the inferior objective, so it's only worth 1 point at the end of the game. And over here we have the other Riptide. Nothing in reserve for the Tau, it's all on the field to start with. Then over here we have the Necron deployment. They finished deploying first, so they will be going first unless the Tau steal initiative. They've got the Doomsday Ark here, Lich Guard with a Overlord here, and then over here objective 6 is the superior objective, so that is worth more points. I think it's either 3 or 4 instead of 2. Imhotep's up here in the building just for line of sight for his Storm Call probably. Over here we've got the Citan, we have the other Immortals split across 2 other objectives, the Spider over there, and in reserve is the Monolith and the 10 Warriors inside the Monolith. So it will be Necron's turn 1, unless nothing. It's Necron's turn 1. So at the end of Necron's movement phase for turn 1, we're going to quickly cover Psychic in just the very start of the shooting phase, because Imhotep called the storm. No actual shooting has taken place though, but kind of treating the Call of the Storm as a psychic thing, even though it happens at the start of the shooting phase. Anyway, most of the... yeah, did the Sledge Guard move? Yeah, they must have done. They moved up 5 inches, they're not that fast. They probably should have advanced. Well, we can maybe correct that if we need to. Anyway, the Nightbringer moved up here and tried to use Antimatter Meteor on the Riptide here. Rolled a 1, so it failed. The Treyarch Stalker moved up over there, and Imhotep had to move down a level to give him the extra distance required. 48 inches is the max on Call of the Storm. To call it on the Firewars in this ruin here, he did very well and killed 5 of them. It then arced onto the Cadre Fireblade and did 2 more wounds, leaving him on 3, which is pretty devastating. It didn't arc to the Pathfinders, though, thankfully. So, I think that covers everything. Now on to the rest of their turn. Very unlikely there's going to be any charges, so just the shooting. So at the proper end of Necron's turn 1, there wasn't much shooting because there isn't many things in range to be shot at. But what shooting there was actually super effective. The Doomsday Ark stayed still, got 6 shots on its full power profile because it stayed still, and attacked the 2 broadsides that did not have drones to take their wounds for them, and killed them both. Just rolled really, really well and negated their saves. Other than that, the Firewars that were on this objective down here were finished off by the Treyarch Stalker's Heat Ray. Had to use a command point just to guarantee it. But that did get first strike in 2 different places, so that's 1 victory point for Necrons. The Treyarch Stalker opted not to shoot at the tank or the other broadsides because the wounds would have just got passed off to drones, so it was... At that point it was just to try and guarantee first strike because the broadside hadn't died by then. Weren't expecting the Doomsday Ark to do as well as it did. Oh, also yes, went back and checked. They had not ran, and obviously they don't have guns, so they just advanced like an extra 4 inches because they should have done. So that about covers it for Necron's turn 1. They got first strike. They're still holding objectives. Imhotep has used his Call to Storm. It's now time for the Tau to hit back hard. An end of Tau movement for turn 1. I don't know how I'm going to manage to cover all this amazing movement that they've done because the Tau they move so much. Anyway, the Hammerhead, it has fly, so it just kind of bounced over here to kind of body block the Fireblade and get a little bit of line of sight on the Doomsday Ark. One of the Riptides popped out from cover here. The Firewars that survived deployed their turret. The other Riptide moved up a little bit. The drones have also kind of just shimmied up in between the Riptide and the surviving broadsides, which stayed still to fire a full ballistic skill. Also, before we get into the shooting proper, just going to cover real quick that the Pathfinders have fired their marker lights. They put 4 marker lights on the Treyarch Stalker, which means it's probably not long for this world, but we'll see as we get their shooting done proper. So at the end of Tau turn 1 proper, the shooting has been finished. The broadsides down here and the Riptide here shot into the Treyarch Stalker. The combined fire took it out. As both their Seeker missiles got used, as did the Seeker missile from the Hammerhead to try and take it out. Actually was doing pretty well, surviving for a little bit. Had to be careful with how strong the things shot at it were because it has quantum shielding, which means if you roll high on damage it's easier for it to negate the damage. The Hammerhead also shot its railgun, the submunition shot, into the Doomsday Ark. We'll cover the Doomsday Ark wounds in a moment as we pan round here. The other Riptide fired its ion accelerator into the Doomsday Ark as well, and the fusion blasters shot at the Lich-Guard because they were just barely in range and nothing else was. 1 Lich-Guard was killed, and the combined damage to Doomsday Ark has left it on 10 wounds, although I think it regenerates 1 at the start of next turn. So they also got first strike in the form of the Treyarch Stalker. Other than that though, the Lich-Guard might get up as we move into Necron's turn 2. End of movement in Necron's turn 2 and the monolith has descended. Now the tower is pretty spread out over their end of the table, so it had no choice but to kind of just land in the front lines. It is blocking line of sight to most of the Immortals over there branching the 2 objectives, so that is a bonus, but it's obviously facing the brunt of the Tau gun line. Other than that, the Lich-Guard advanced again, as did the Overlord with them, because they couldn't quite get within the tent to even attempt to charge against the Riptide there, so they just advanced to clear some more distance. The Satan Shard of the Nightbringer moved out of cover, moved closest, well it was kind of equidistant between the tank and the Riptide, but chose, because they're equal distance, chose to attack the Riptide with Anti-Dimensional Meteor and did a couple of wounds to him with that, so that Riptide is down to 11 wounds remaining. Still got the shooting to do. The Doomsday Arc stayed still again to fire at full ballistic skill, and Imhotep just moved down to be with the other Immortals. Alright, we'll be back after the shooting. At the end of Necron's turn 2 fully, they did really well with what was very little firing again. The Monolith, obviously a foe to be reckoned with. Its main crystal whip, whatever it's called, attack lashed out against the Riptide, not the one that's closest, the other one. The Gauze Flare arrays on its sides shot out the Hammerhead, brought it down to 11 wounds remaining. The Doomsday Arc stayed still, so it fired at full ballistic strength, or it can fire its full power beam, which is just ridiculously strong. It resulted in, I think the Riptide here had 2 wounds left by the time the Monolith shot at it. It's just, it got ripped apart by the Doomsday Arc. So that Riptide is down and out. It is very unfortunate because he had the Fusion Blasters, which would have been good for taking out the Monolith. I'm not sure if it's worth the effort to try and take out the Monolith at this point or focus on everything else. I guess we'll see. But yeah, that puts Necrons in a strong position. Again, they just ignored where the drones were to take wounds for the things over there. But we'll see what the Tau can do to recover as we go into their turn 2. End of Tau movement in turn 2, not much moved honestly, it was just the drones shuffling and spreading out slightly between, kind of just blocking also the way there, and still staying close enough to give ablative wounds to the broadsides if they need it. The other Riptide did move up and land here, but that's about it. Everything else stayed still, including the Hammerhead, which is kind of banking on hopefully doing a lot of damage this turn, but we'll see as we do their shooting. End of Tau turn 2, and that was pretty disastrous. How disastrous? Well, everything shot, and that's amounted in total to 1 wound on a Lich Guard and about 5 wounds on the Monolith, I think? 6 wounds. 6 wounds on the Monolith. That is potentially game ruining just at turn 2, just how badly the rolls went this turn. But we'll go over it real quick. The drones that could shot at the Nightbringer, the Hammerhead split the railgun onto the Monolith and the Smart Missiles onto the Lich Guard. The Pathfinders put marker lights onto the Monolith. The broadsides here, Smart Missiles went into the Lich Guard, the main heavy missiles went into the Monolith. Over here, the Riptide wounded itself to fire its higher velocity or higher power ion accelerator. It did work, and its Smart Missiles went after the Lich Guard as well, which is just staggering that those Lich Guards survived the volley. It wasn't even just that they have an invul, it's just the rolls were just terrible. So yeah, the Monolith went down from 20 wounds to 14. That's about the only significant thing that happened. But as I say, potentially disastrous already as we move into Necron's turn 3. End of Necron movement in turn 3, the Monolith has deposited their warrior blob out the front and then just kind of shimmied to the side to block line of sight on the Immortals behind them again. Other than that, the only things to move was the Nightbringer, the Lich Guard and the Overlord over here, ignoring the tower here, instead going for the objective grab because there's not much that can stop them over here besides a Fire Warrior squad that can't shoot very well anyway. The Satan used Anti-Dimensional Meteor again. It hits the closest target, which was the Hammerhead, and did a couple more mortal wounds to it. On to what was going to be a very painful for the Tau shooting phase. End of Necron turn 3. They didn't have a fantastic turn, so that's just as well for the Tau to still have a chance here. The main particle whip of the Monolith shot into the Riptide, got it down to 10 wounds remaining. The arcs on the sides shot into the drones to start thinning them out because they're just going to start taking hits for the broadsides and such anyway. The Necron Warrior Blob also shot into the drones, and there's only 3 left alive. I think, how many was there to start with? It was 10 to start with. So yeah, 7 dead. The only other thing to fire was the Doomsday Arc, and for once it missed. It shot its superpowered cannon at the Hammerhead and missed. Over here, the Satan Shard used his Death Gaze, but the the only thing in range was the hammerhead, and it only wounds vehicles on a 6, everything else on a 2, well, infantry on a 2. So it wasn't able to do anything, and with that other Riptide being dead, they didn't have anything to charge, so they're just still sauntering along towards 2 objectives here, prioritising this one because that's the one that's worth less. And just, again, kind of ignoring the blob here. So they didn't have a great turn, they didn't have as bad a turn as the Tau did, in terms of turn 3s, but let's move on. So that's it for their turn, let's move on to the Tau turn 3. End of Tau turn 3 movement, and really I think, yeah, the only thing to move was the Pathfinders, which moved into the objective and a little bit closer because they're not going to bother with marker lights, they're going to shoot. And the surviving Riptide hopped over the monolith. It is just out of 1 inch, in case you're curious, between them, so it is allowed to be there. And it's also wounded itself, although I don't remember if the dice have applied the wound or not, I need to go back and double check, to boost in the charge phase, so it gets to move 2d6 extra after the shooting phase, so it might be in a different place when you see it next. But onto the shooting phase, and hope to whatever the Tau pray to that this shooting phase is better than the last one. At the end of Tau turn 3, that went pretty well, better than expected. Over here, the combined fire from the Fire Warriors, their setup turret, and the smart missiles from the Hammerhead got the Satan Shard down to 7 wounds remaining. Actually, you know what, that was just the Fire Warriors and the turret, because the smart missiles for that shot into the Lich Guard, the railgun shot into the monolith and missed, the Pathfinders shot into the Warriors, as did the Cadre over there, as did everything that the drones and broadsides over there had, resulting in dead Necron Warriors. They were wiped out, so there's no chance of them regenerating when we get to turn 4. Over here, the Riptide, remember it was kind of standing there-ish, it killed 2 of these Immortals, and then used its boost in the charge phase to kind of try and conceal itself, but the Doomsday Arc is honestly still going to see it, but I'll get a cover save because more than 50% of it's obscured, which I think counts for it. Or is that just vehicles? Going to need to double check that now, because no doubt the Doomsday Arc will shoot at it, because that's really the only threat now. And I apologise for still being zoomed in, I thought I zoomed out. So we'll see what Necrons regenerate and what have you as we begin their turn 4. End of Necron's turn 4 movement, and the Satan Shard of the Nightbringer has moved up. Oh, didn't do his Psychic Power yet. Well, we'll do that before the shooting anyway, so the wounds will still no doubt happen. He's gunning for the Fire Warriors there. Lich Guard kind of following behind, but leaving options open for the Hammerhead, as is the Immortal that's just been following along. Both Lich Guard resurrected, incidentally, and 1 Immortal resurrected. The Monolith has kind of hopped forwards towards the remains of the Tau gun line, and other than that, the only other thing to move was Imhotep, who just kind of moved this way a little bit, but also staying behind cover there. End of Psychic and shooting for the Necrons turn 4. Antimatter Meteor did nothing, but the Satan Shard of a Nightbringer used his Gaze of Death and killed 4 of the Fire Warriors here, leaving only 3 behind. He's going to charge them in a second now as well. The Monolith fired everything into the Hammerhead and got it down to 4 wounds remaining. And then over the other end of the table, over here, the Doomsday Arc shot at the Riptide over yonder, hiding over there. In the end, it didn't matter if he got cover or not, because it still went down to his invulnerable, but he didn't take any wounds. The Immortals over here also rapid fired, or sorry, their assault too. They shot into the Riptide and didn't get through his save. So not a super effective turn of shooting particularly, although I guess the Hammerhead is almost blown up. But there are some charges happening, so we'll be back after the assault phase. So at the actual end of Necron turn 4, the Lich Guard failed their charge against the Hammerhead. The Nightbringer made it in without taking any damage from the surviving Fire Warriors and easily cut all 3 of them down, wiping them out, and the turret just gets destroyed because there's nothing left to man it, or to control it, whatever. Didn't take any wounds, and is next to the objective. Whether or not he stays there, we'll see, I guess. But that side of the table is clear. That's all that remains. So now it's on to turn 4 for the Tau to try and pull something back. End of Tau movement for their turn 4, and they didn't move a single thing. So just keeping it on record, the movement phase has occurred, but the Tau opted not to use it. End of Tau turn 4 shooting. The Riptide had a rather disastrous turn and only managed to kill one Immortal that might be getting back up in a second. Took off one wound off of itself to give itself a 3+ invulnerable save for the next turn though, just in case, trying to keep itself alive. Everything over this end essentially just shot at the Monolith just to try and get bragging rights for killing the Monolith. Got it down to 7 wounds, which is not too bad. It started at 20, but getting through toughness 8 is just painful with a bunch of toughness, strength 5, strength 7 mostly. So Monolith is okay. It's wounded. I think it's on a reduced bracket now as well, but there wasn't much else to be done. The smart missiles from the Hammerhead I think did fire into the Lich Guard, but its ballistic skill is worse now because it's almost dead. So everything over that side of the table was unhurt. We're now moving into the final turn for the Necrons. So for the final movement phase for the Necrons, the Satan Shard of the Nightbringer moved in next to this objective. The Overlord peeled off away from the Lich Guard to try and get into range of them. I think he's within 4, but we'll have to check. The Lich Guard moved to point blank with the Hammerhead just to charge it come the assault phase. The Monolith stood still. The Doomsday Ark moved slightly to try and contest this objective here that was freed. I'm not sure if it's within range or not. And the Immortals over there just kind of surrounded the objective just to try and stop the Riptide getting it. When it comes to the Tau's final turn. So, shooting and maybe assault at the same time, we'll see, depends on how much shooting gets done, for the Necrons. At the end of the shooting phase, and the assault phase because it's not going to happen anymore for the Necrons' final turn, the Satan Shard and the Monolith kind of combined their power to destroy the Hammerhead. It did not explode. Then the Monolith was also firing its arcs on the side at the Pathfinders, killed 4 of them, took them from the front to stop the Lich Guard having any chance of making a successful charge, just to deny them being able to move into the objective. Over here, the Doomsday Ark got very lucky with its wounding on the Riptide, has left it with 4 wounds, so it's moving at diminished performance, as we go into the final turn for the Tau, where they try and scrape something back. End of movement for Tau turn 5, the 2 surviving broadsides have shuffled along, as have the drones, just to try and stop the Satan Shard from claiming that objective over there, even though it's the diminished objective. The Fireblade kind of shuffled again just to claim this objective here to make sure, although there's 2 surviving Pathfinders. And over here, the surviving Riptide has poor movement due to his wounds remaining. He's just outside of an inch in front of the surviving Immortals, hoping to kill them, and then claiming that objective. We'll see though as we handle this shooting. So the end of Tau's shooting for turn 5. The Satan Shard of the Nightbringer was only brought down to 4 wounds, so he did not die. Over the other end of the table, the Riptide was only able to take out 1 Immortal in shooting. He then did a desperate charge and only killed another one, leaving 1 surviving, and of course, because they're battle forged, infantry have priority claiming over objectives, so the Riptide is not claiming it. We'll be back with the final scores and the recap of the match. So here we are at the end of the game, and Necrons were pretty dominant this time around. Just to clarify a few things, again keeping in mind this objective here is the inferior one, so it's only worth 1 victory point. The claiming distance for the objectives is 3 inches, so this one was not claimed as the Overlord is 4 inches away. And the priority objective was the one back here guarded by Imhotep and the Immortals, which was not touched or harassed at all, and it is worth 4. So they own the priority, the Necrons own the priority objective for 4, they own a normal objective for 2, and the inferior objective for 1. They also had first strike, they also have line breaker. The Tau hold a normal objective for 2, they have first strike for 1, and they have line breaker for 1 as well, meaning that the final score is 9-4 in the Necrons' favour. If it wasn't for that one disastrous, absolutely just awful round of shooting just before things on the Tau side started getting wiped out, I feel like it would have been different, but that was just some of the worst rolling in a single round of shooting I've ever seen. 1 Lich Guard. and what, a wound off the monolith was it? Just, it should have been so much more. That was just some of the worst rolling collectively in a single turn that has ever existed. But Necron's victory. We'll see some fresh armies next time. Maybe change up the battlefield or do one more on this and then mix it up. We'll see how we feel. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please do continue to show your support and watch the other videos on the channel. My name has been Flick, and I will see you next time. Ta-ta for now.